The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council building stretched high into the purple sky of Nexus Prime. Inside the central chamber, hundreds of different alien species sat in curved rows, their various breathing apparatus and translation devices humming softly. But today the usual diplomatic chatter had fallen completely silent. Admiral Vextar stood at the center podium, his four arms moving gracefully as he manipulated the floating holographic displays. His silver skin reflected the blue light from the data streams, and his large black eyes showed deep concern. As the head of galactic security, he had seen many strange things in his long career, but nothing like this. "Show them the probe data again," he said to his assistant. The hologram shifted, displaying a small, damaged object floating in the darkness of space. It looked ancient, covered in strange markings that no one had been able to translate. The probe had been drifting in the empty void between star systems for what appeared to be thousands of years. Counselor Thrain leaned forward in her seat, her purple tentacles moving restlessly. She was from the Aquatic Federation, one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy. Her species had been exploring space for over 50,000 years, and they kept detailed records of every known civilization. "The probe's design is completely unknown," she said, her voice carrying through the universal translators. "Our databases show no match for these construction methods or materials." Dr. Kethrin, the Council's lead scientist, stood up from his workstation. His insect-like appearance made some species uncomfortable, but his intelligence was legendary throughout the galaxy. His 6 legs clicked against the metal floor as he approached the display. "The interesting part is not the probe itself," he said, adjusting his complex scanning equipment. "It's what the probe was trying to tell us before it finally died." The chamber's audio system crackled to life, playing the probe's final transmission. The sound was broken and filled with static, but certain words came through clearly. "Warning, expansion detected. They are billions. Repeat, they are billions. Growth rate exceeds all models. Recommend immediate investigation of sectors 7 through 43, population density impossible. They are everywhere." The transmission cut off into meaningless noise, then silence. A low murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Many species began talking nervously among themselves in their native languages, creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and strange harmonic sounds. The probe's sensors detected massive energy signatures in the outer rim territories, Dr. Kethrin continued, bringing up a three-dimensional map of their galaxy. Red dots began appearing on the display, scattered across huge areas of space that the Council had always assumed were empty. "Each red dot represents what appears to be a major settlement or city," he explained. "The energy readings suggest populations in the millions for each location." Counselor Thrain's tentacles went completely still, which everyone knew meant she was either very surprised or very afraid. "How many dots are we looking at, Doctor?" Dr. Kethrin manipulated the display, zooming out to show a larger section of the galaxy. More red dots appeared, then more, until the outer regions looked like they were covered in a rash of red spots. "Conservative estimate based on the probe's data, approximately 47,000 major settlements." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting questions and demands in dozens of languages. Admiral Vextar had to activate the sonic dampeners to restore order. "That's impossible," shouted Ambassador Krill from the warrior clans. "Our long-range scouts have surveyed those sectors multiple times. There's nothing out there but dead worlds and empty space." "The probe's data suggests otherwise," Dr. Kethrin replied calmly. "And there's something else. The energy signatures. They match known patterns from only one species in our databases." The chamber went quiet again. Everyone waited. "They match human energy signatures." If the room had been quiet before, now it was completely silent. Even the background humming of the building's system seemed to stop. Humans were known to every species in the galaxy, but only as a curiosity. They lived on a single planet orbiting a yellow star in a quiet corner of space. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had barely managed to put small stations on their own moon and had never traveled beyond their solar system's outer planets. Most civilizations had classified humans as a developing species, interesting to study but not important enough to worry about. Their entire population was believed to be less than 10 billion individuals, all crammed onto one small blue world. "You're suggesting that this primitive species has somehow created an empire of 47,000 worlds without anyone noticing?" Counselor Thrain asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "I'm not suggesting anything," Dr. Kethrin replied. "I'm reporting what the probe detected. The energy patterns are definitely human in origin, but the scale is..." He paused, searching for words. The scale is beyond anything we've ever encountered. Admiral Vextar studied the display showing all those red dots scattered across previously empty space. Each dot represented millions of beings. If the probe was correct, and if those beings were really human, then everything the galaxy thought it knew about the universe was wrong. We need to investigate immediately, he announced. Prepare the third exploration fleet for immediate departure. Full scientific survey team, military escort and diplomatic corps. Sir, Dr. Catherine said quietly, if these readings are accurate, we're not just talking about a few hidden colonies. The probe's data suggests a total human population that could exceed 1 trillion individuals. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. 1 trillion humans spread across thousands of worlds, completely unknown to galactic civilization. Admiral Vextar looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces, all showing the same expression of shock and growing fear. Then we need to find out how they've been hiding from us, he said grimly, and what they're planning to do next. Captain Jin felt his breathing mask adjust automatically as he stepped onto the surface of what humans called Terra Nova 7. The name sounded pleasant enough, but the reality made his scales crawl with fear. His environmental suit's alarms had been beeping constantly since they landed, warning him about deadly radiation, poisonous gases, and crushing gravity that should have flattened any living creature. But somehow, impossibly, there was a city here. The investigation fleet had been traveling for 3 months to reach this remote system. Admiral Vextar had chosen Captain Jin for this mission because his species was known for surviving in harsh environments. The Saurian Republic had colonized many difficult worlds, but nothing like this. Captain, my equipment must be broken, Lieutenant Yura said through the communication system. Her voice sounded confused and frightened. The scanners show that the air here would kill most known species in minutes, but I'm watching human children play outside. Jin looked through his binoculars at the city spread out below their hidden observation post. It was built into the side of a mountain, with tall buildings that reached up toward the swirling methane clouds. The architecture was strange but beautiful, with curved walls that seemed to flow like water. Gardens and parks were scattered throughout the city, filled with plants that somehow grew in soil that registered as highly toxic waste. The most disturbing part was how normal everything looked. Humans walked along sidewalks without any protective gear. They sat on benches in parks where the radiation levels would have killed Jin's people in hours. Children ran and laughed in playgrounds where the gravity should have crushed their bones. Look at that construction site, whispered Lieutenant Yura, pointing to an area where humans were building what appeared to be a new residential complex. The workers wore simple clothes and basic safety helmets, nothing more. They lifted massive steel beams that should have required heavy machinery, their movements quick and efficient despite the crushing gravity. Commander Sung was among the workers, and through their long-range listening devices, they could hear his casual conversation with his teammates. He was discussing lunch plans and complaining about the weather being too dry. Too dry. On a planet where the atmosphere was thick with poisonous methane. This doesn't make sense, Captain Jin muttered, checking his instruments again. According to our databases, humans are one of the most fragile species in known space. They come from a world with perfect conditions, just the right temperature, just the right atmosphere, just the right gravity. They should need massive life support systems to survive anywhere else. His communication device crackled with a report from Communications Officer Zephyr, who was monitoring the investigation fleet's other teams scattered across the solar system. Captain, I'm receiving similar reports from all survey teams. Settlement designation Gamma 445 has humans living comfortably on a world with an ammonia-based atmosphere. The air there would dissolve most species' breathing apparatus, but the humans are gardening and having outdoor festivals. Jin felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. His own species, the Saurians, were considered incredibly adaptable. They had spent thousands of years slowly modifying their biology to survive on different types of worlds. Even so, they could only colonize planets that were somewhat similar to their home world. They needed years of preparation and expensive terraforming equipment to make new worlds livable. But these humans seemed to have skipped that entire process. Instead of changing the worlds to suit them, they had somehow changed themselves to suit the worlds. Sir, Lieutenant Yura's voice was getting more excited and worried. I'm detecting energy readings from 17 more settlements in this system alone. Every single one is on a world that our databases classify as completely uninhabitable. Through his binoculars, Captain Jin watched a group of human children playing a game that involved throwing a ball back and forth. In the crushing gravity of this world, the ball moved strangely, but the children had adapted their movements perfectly. They laughed and shouted as they played, completely unaware that they were performing physical feats that would be impossible for most galactic species. An adult human walked by, a woman carrying groceries home from what appeared to be a market. She moved with easy confidence, her breathing normal and relaxed. The radiation levels around her were high enough to require emergency evacuation procedures for most galactic civilizations, but she was humming a cheerful tune. "Captain," came another report from the fleet. "Settlement designation Beta 892 has humans living on a world with surface temperatures that regularly exceed 200 degrees standard. They're running swimming pools and outdoor sports competitions." Jin's hands were shaking as he adjusted his scanner settings, hoping he would find some explanation for what he was seeing. Perhaps the humans were using some kind of advanced technology that his equipment couldn't detect. Perhaps they had developed incredible medical treatments that allowed them to survive in impossible conditions. But the more he watched, the more he realized the truth was much simpler and much more terrifying. These humans weren't using advanced technology to survive. They had somehow changed their own bodies to thrive in conditions that would kill every other known species. Commander Sung finished his work shift and began walking home, chatting with friends along the way. They stopped at a street vendor selling food that was probably cooked using the planet's natural radiation. They ate and laughed together, completely at ease in an environment that was more hostile than most military testing grounds. "Lieutenant," Captain Jin said quietly, "prepare a full report for Admiral Vextar. Tell him we've found something that changes everything we thought we knew about human capabilities." He looked out at the thriving city again, watching thousands of humans living their normal, everyday lives in conditions that should have been impossible. For the first time in his long military career, Captain Jin felt truly afraid of what humanity might be capable of. Dr. Mira carefully climbed down the metal ladder into the old monitoring station buried deep beneath the surface of Terra Nova 7's largest moon. The station had been abandoned for decades, but its equipment was still functional. Her team had chosen this location because it was hidden and had powerful sensors that could scan the entire solar system without being detected. The station was cramped and cold, filled with outdated computer screens and humming machinery. Dr. Mira was a quantum physicist from the Academic Coalition, one of the galaxy's most advanced scientific civilizations. She had spent her entire career studying how information moved across space, and she had never seen anything like what her instruments were showing her. "Engineer Tay, come look at this," she called to her colleague who was working at a different console across the small room. "The energy patterns coming from the human settlements are completely wrong." Engineer Tay walked over, his 6 legs making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. His species was known for their incredible engineering abilities, and he had designed some of the most sophisticated communication systems in galactic space. He looked at Dr. Myra's display and his antenna-like ears drooped with confusion. "This cannot be right," he said, adjusting his translation device. "According to these readings, every human settlement in this system is connected by some kind of instant communication network." Dr. Mira nodded grimly. "That's what I thought too, but I've checked the equipment 3 times. Look at these quantum fluctuation patterns." She pointed to a series of wave-like lines moving across her screen. "These aren't normal communication signals. There's something completely different." In all of galactic civilization, sending messages between star systems was a slow and difficult process. Even the fastest communication methods took weeks or months to carry information across interstellar distances. Most civilizations had to plan their activities very carefully because they couldn't coordinate in real time across their empires. The Academic Coalition had spent thousands of years trying to develop faster communication methods. They had experimented with quantum entanglement, but the technology was extremely unstable and could only work across very short distances. The idea of maintaining quantum connections across entire solar systems was considered impossible by every known scientific theory. "Dr. Mira," came a voice through the communication system from Chief Analyst 1 aboard the investigation fleet. "Are you certain about these readings? The mathematical models say that quantum entanglement across such distances should collapse within microseconds." "I know what the models say," Dr. Mira replied, feeling frustrated and excited at the same time. "But I'm watching it happen right now. Every single human settlement we've detected is connected to every other settlement through these quantum channels." She manipulated the holographic display to show a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. Bright lines of energy connected each human settlement to all the others, creating a complex web of instant communication that spanned millions of kilometers of empty space. Engineer Tay was running his own scans from a different console. "Dr. Mira, this is even stranger than we thought. The network isn't just limited to this solar system. I'm detecting quantum signatures that extend far beyond our sensor range. What do you mean? She asked, walking over to his workstation. I mean, the network connects to other star systems. Lots of other star systems. His voice was quiet with amazement. If my calculations are correct, this communication network spans across thousands of light-years of space. Dr. Mira felt her blood turn cold. The implications were staggering. While every known galactic civilization struggled to maintain contact between planets in the same solar system, humans had somehow created an instant communication network that connected their entire empire across vast distances. They're not just separate colonies, she whispered, understanding the truth for the first time. They're all parts of one enormous organism. Every human settlement can share information with every other settlement instantly. As if the network had heard her words, something remarkable happened. The energy patterns on all their screens suddenly shifted and synchronized. Across 17 different worlds in the solar system, every human settlement began moving in perfect coordination. On Terra Nova 7, construction crews suddenly changed their work schedules. On the ammonia world that humans called New Garden, cargo ships altered their flight paths. On the high-radiation planet designated Gamma 445, entire populations began moving in organized patterns. Look at this, Engineer Tay called out, his voice filled with wonder and fear. Resource shipments are being rerouted between planets. Population movements are being coordinated across multiple worlds. They're managing their entire civilization like a single, unified system. Dr. Mira watched the displays with growing amazement. In galactic civilization, coordinating activities between different worlds was a nightmare of delays and miscommunication. Military fleets often took months to organize simple operations. Trade agreements required years of negotiation because of communication delays. But the humans were managing thousands of worlds with perfect synchronization. They could make decisions and implement them across their entire empire in real time. It was like watching a single mind controlling a body with trillions of cells. Chief Analyst 1, she reported back to the fleet, we're not dealing with a normal civilization. The humans have created something that's never existed before, a galactic-scale organism that can think and act as a single entity. Dr. Mira, Engineer Tay said quietly from his console, I think they know we're here. She looked at his screen and saw that all the energy patterns had suddenly focused in their direction. For a moment, she felt as if thousands of worlds were all looking directly at their hidden monitoring station. Then the network pulsed once like a massive heartbeat and went completely silent. The sudden quiet was more frightening than all the activity had been. Admiral Vextar was reviewing the latest reports from his investigation teams when the impossible happened. One moment he was standing alone on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by the normal hum of electronics and the quiet conversations of his crew. The next moment, a human woman was standing right beside him. She had appeared without any warning. No alarms had sounded. No sensors had detected incoming transport beams. No airlocks had opened. She was simply there as if she had always been part of the bridge crew. Every officer on the bridge immediately reached for their weapons, but nothing happened when they pressed the activation switches. The energy weapons that should have powered up instantly remained completely dead. Even the emergency lighting had stopped working. Please, there is no need for hostility, the human woman said in perfect galactic standard language. Her voice was calm and friendly, as if she were greeting old friends at a social gathering. We have been monitoring your investigation with great interest. Admiral Vextar felt his four hearts beating rapidly as he tried to understand what was happening. His flagship was one of the most advanced vessels in the galactic fleet, protected by energy shields that could stop asteroid impacts and sensor arrays that could detect a single molecule of foreign gas. Yet this human had somehow walked onto his bridge without triggering a single security system. The woman appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. She wore simple clothing that looked comfortable rather than formal. Nothing about her appearance suggested she possessed technology advanced enough to penetrate galactic military defenses. Who are you? Admiral Vextar asked, his voice carefully controlled despite his shock. I am Ambassador Hannah, she replied with a polite smile. I represent the Terran colonial network in matters of first contact with developing civilizations. The phrase, developing civilizations, hit every officer on the bridge like a physical blow. The galactic civilizations represented in this fleet had been exploring space for tens of thousands of years. They considered themselves to be among the most advanced societies in the known universe. Your ancient probe's estimates were quite conservative, Ambassador Hannah continued in the same conversational tone. The current human population across all settled systems now exceeds 1.2 trillion individuals. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Admiral Vextar could hear his own breathing inside his environmental suit, and the quiet humming of his ship's life support systems. But no one on the bridge spoke or moved. Finally, Dr. Catherine, the fleet's chief scientist, managed to whisper a single word, "Trillion." "Yes, across approximately 47,000 settled worlds," Ambassador Hannah confirmed as casually as if she were discussing the weather. "Though we define settled differently than your species might. We tend to establish viable populations of at least 20 million individuals before officially designating colonial status." Commander Rin, the fleet's military strategist, stepped forward with his weapon still in his hand, even though it refused to function. "That's impossible," he said firmly. "Our deep space survey teams have explored those sectors multiple times over the past 1,000 years. There are no signs of civilization in the areas you're claiming." Ambassador Hannah's smile remained patient and understanding. "Your survey methods are designed to detect technology similar to your own development patterns. We chose to develop along different paths." She made a simple gesture with her hand, and suddenly all the electronic systems on the bridge came back to life. Weapons powered up, computers resumed their normal operations, and the main display screen activated to show a three-dimensional map of their galaxy. What appeared on the screen made every officer present take several steps backward in shock and fear. The galaxy was covered with points of light. Thousands and thousands of bright dots connected by flowing lines of energy, creating a vast network that stretched across enormous distances. Each dot represented what appeared to be a major human settlement, and the connecting lines showed the communication network that Dr. Myra's team had discovered. "We have been aware of galactic civilization for approximately 340 of your standard years," Ambassador Hannah continued, seeming completely unaware of the panic she was causing. "Your species are quite fascinating from an anthropological perspective." Admiral Vextar stared at the display trying to count the settlement points, but there were simply too many. The human empire appeared to span across huge sections of the galaxy that galactic civilization had never even attempted to explore. "The outer rim territories that you classify as empty space actually contain some of our oldest and most developed colonies," the ambassador explained. "We established our first settlements there over 800 years ago." 800 years? Dr. Catherine's voice was barely audible. "But your species only achieved space flight 200 years ago, according to our records." "Your records are based on observations of our home system," Ambassador Hannah replied gently. "We maintained a small, primitive presence there specifically to avoid attracting attention while our main civilization expanded elsewhere." The implications of her words slowly sank into every mind on the bridge. While galactic civilization had been casually monitoring what they thought was a backward species confined to a single planet, humanity had been secretly building an empire that dwarfed anything else in known space. "The population centers you can see on this display represent only our major settlements," she continued. "We also maintain research stations, mining operations, agricultural worlds, and exploration outposts throughout the galaxy." Commander Rin looked at the vast network of human settlements spreading across the display. "How many people are we really talking about?" he asked quietly. Ambassador Hannah paused for a moment, as if consulting some internal source of information. "Current estimates suggest our total population across all territories now approaches 1.7 trillion individuals, though that number increases by several million each day." The number was so large that it seemed meaningless. The entire galactic civilization that these officers represented included perhaps 50 billion individuals across all known species combined. Humanity had built an empire 30 times larger than the rest of galactic civilization, and they had done it without anyone noticing. The great crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet for so long. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned sections, but instead of the usual diplomatic discussions and formal debates, small groups whispered nervously to each other in dozens of different languages. The universal translators created a low buzz of overlapping conversations, all focused on the same impossible topic. Ambassador Hannah stood calmly at the central podium where speakers normally addressed the full council. She had been waiting there for over 6 hours while the representatives tried to process what she had told them. Her hands were folded peacefully in front of her, and she showed no signs of impatience or frustration despite the long delay. Beside her, Deputy Ambassador Quan worked quietly at a portable holographic display, monitoring the constant flow of information between human settlements across the galaxy. Every few minutes, he would announce updated statistics in the same casual tone someone might use to report the daily weather. "The Terran Colonial Network currently maintains active settlements on 47,847 worlds," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Population growth remained steady at approximately 2.3% annually. The number had increased by over 40 worlds since the session began. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans were establishing new colonies faster than the Council could even comprehend the scope of their existing empire. Counselor Thrain sat motionless in her species section, her purple tentacles completely still for the first time anyone could remember. Her people, the Aquatic Federation, were among the oldest and most experienced space-traveling civilizations in the galaxy. They had been exploring the stars for over 50,000 years and kept detailed records of every known species and settlement. "How?" she finally whispered, her voice barely audible even with the translation amplifiers. "How did an entire galactic civilization develop without our notice?" Ambassador Hannah turned toward her with a gentle, understanding expression. "It's a matter of scale of reference, Counselor. Your species, like most others in this chamber, naturally developed around resource-rich, habitable worlds. You compete for the same dozen stellar classifications across a limited number of systems. Humanity chose to adapt ourselves to thrive in places where you never thought to look." She gestured to Deputy Ambassador Quan, who manipulated his holographic display to show a three-dimensional map of galactic space. The familiar territories controlled by various Council civilizations appeared as small, bright clusters scattered around the galactic core. These were the garden worlds, the perfect planets with ideal conditions for supporting life. "Your civilizations built themselves around worlds like these," Ambassador Hannah explained, highlighting the bright clusters. "Planets with breathable atmospheres, comfortable temperatures, suitable gravity, and abundant resources. There are perhaps 2,000 such worlds in the entire galaxy." The display zoomed out to show a much larger view, and suddenly thousands of new points of light appeared in areas that the Council had always considered empty, hostile, or worthless. "We built our civilization around worlds like these," she continued. "High radiation planets, methane atmospheres, crushing gravity, toxic soil, extreme temperatures. There are approximately 200,000 such worlds in the galaxy, and most of them are completely ignored by other species." Ambassador Krill from the warrior clan stood up, his massive frame towering over his seat. "But those worlds are uninhabitable. Our surveys classified them as death worlds. Nothing can survive on planets with those conditions." "Nothing from your species, perhaps?" Ambassador Hannah replied politely. "Humans learned to adapt ourselves to the conditions rather than spending centuries terraforming each world to match our original biology." She nodded to Deputy Ambassador Quan again, and the display changed to show detailed information about specific human settlements. The data was staggering: millions of humans living comfortably on worlds where the atmosphere would dissolve most species' breathing equipment, where radiation levels would sterilize entire populations, where gravity would crush bones to powder. "Consider the mathematics," Ambassador Hannah continued, her voice remaining calm and educational. "Your civilizations compete intensely for control of 2,000 habitable worlds. We had 200,000 worlds to choose from, with no competition whatsoever. While you spent your resources fighting each other for territory, we spent those same resources expanding peacefully into empty space." The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. Every war that had been fought between galactic civilizations, every territorial dispute, every resource conflict, all of it had been over a tiny fraction of the available space in the galaxy. Dr. Kethrin activated his translation device and spoke from the Scientific Coalition's section. "The energy requirements alone should have made such expansion impossible. Our calculations show that maintaining settlements across such distances would require power sources beyond current galactic technology." "Your calculations are based on your technological development path," Deputy Ambassador Quan replied, looking up from his display. "We approached the problem differently. Instead of trying to generate massive amounts of power, we designed our systems to require much less energy. Instead of fighting against hostile environments, we adapted our biology to work with them." He manipulated his display to show the quantum communication network that connected all human settlements. "Our instantaneous communication system, for example, uses quantum entanglement in ways that your scientists consider impossible. But we didn't develop it by following your theoretical models, we developed it by experimenting with methods your scientists never tried." Counselor Thrain's tentacles finally began moving again, a sign that she was recovering from her shock. "What do you want from us?" she asked directly. Ambassador Hannah smiled warmly, the first time she had shown strong emotion during the entire session. "We don't want anything from you, Counselor. We're here to offer something to you." The holographic display changed one more time, showing trade routes, resource distribution networks, and technological sharing agreements. Where the current galactic civilization showed isolated clusters competing for limited resources, the human network displayed seamless cooperation across unlimited territory. We're offering membership in the Terran Colonial Network, Ambassador Hannah announced. Full access to our communication systems, our territorial expansion programs, our resource distribution networks, and our adaptive colonization technologies. She paused to let the offer sink in before continuing. Your species have spent thousands of years competing for a handful of garden worlds. We're inviting you to join a civilization that has unlimited room for everyone to grow and prosper. The silence in the chamber was different now, not the shocked silence of fear, but the thoughtful quiet of beings trying to understand a completely new possibility. We're not asking to join galactic civilization, Ambassador Hannah concluded gently. We're inviting galactic civilization to join us.